Hello, everyone. This is Mike Koss, and welcome to a Kev Advotech podcast. I am super delighted to have Kristy Sullivan with me today, and Kristy is the president of the nonprofit 5013C board on My Special Place. And Kristy is, I'll tell the audience straight up, Kristy is no stranger to the villages and the surrounding community. Kristy is involved in a number of volunteer activities. Back 3-4 years ago, I'm already forgetting how long, but Kristy was one of the founding board members to help bring a Best Buddies chapter to the villages, which is very exciting. It's a club that's grown tremendously for our special needs community here. Kristy spearheaded the Tim Tebow Night to Shine to bring that event, that Tim Tebow Night to Shine prom, here to the villages a little over 2 years ago now. So that was a huge effort and something that our kids love every February. And we're going on Night to Shine prom number 3 coming up this February. So Kristy was spearheading. She's the one that led the effort to bring that here locally. And now her biggest, I think, mission and challenge, at least in my view, I'm very excited about her latest efforts as our president for the My Special Place board to bring housing to this community. So without delay, Kristy, welcome. And let me ask you just straight up, what is My Special Place?
Well, Mike, first of all, thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to share more about My Special Place. And Mike is also on our board, as some of you may know. But My Special Place was formed in 2018 as a board of parents and family members who have a child, an adult child or family member with intellectual or developmental disabilities. And you can use the general term special needs. And they started a grassroots effort in an attempt to develop and establish dedicated housing for these individuals in the villages. Currently, we have 160,000 residents in the villages, and we do not have not one dedicated residence for this population of IDD. And we don't even have a group home. The only thing that's even close to the villages is outside of our boundaries, either in Fruitland Park, Leesburg, or larger facilities that you'd have to travel to Lecanto, Florida, almost an hour away. So their attempt was to work with the developer of the villages to get some type of housing dedicated. And there were 3 attempts. Unfortunately, one of them that seemed very viable and was progressing during COVID, they had to put on hold their plans. And when they reconvened after COVID, if you recall, all of the construction costs, material costs had astronomically increased. And the developer of an assisted living that was looking at building this facility had come back and said, there's no way we can build this now. The costs have skyrocketed. We can't afford it. You can't afford it. And they abandoned that project. And so the board had decided to just go dormant for a couple years because, excuse me, they had made a couple, 3 attempts. And it was getting, really discouraging. And even one of the board members who has a sister with a mother that was over 90 at the time said, I can't wait, for something to develop. And I just have to make other plans. And she did. She placed her mother, who is now 93, and her sister is now almost 68. She placed them in an independent care facility, which isn't the best place for her sister, but it was the only option she could come up with at the time. So in April of this year, I was inquiring to one of the former board members what the status was. And we decided to reconvene, reactivate this board. I recruited some additional individuals in our community, some of which are other leaders involved in special needs activities or clubs. And we started meeting in late April. And at that very first meeting, what came up was a property that was available in the villages that had been considered in the past and that was still empty 3 years later. So again, our objective was to provide safe housing that would allow these individuals to live together and be able to continue to live out their lives in the lifestyle that their families had chose here in the villages, even after the parent is gone. So one of our board members immediately contacted a realtor and found out the buildings were still available. And we pursued that, and we've been pursuing that ever since. And I can give you more specifics about the buildings, but I'll turn it over to Mike and see where he wants to go from there.
No, absolutely, Kristy. That's it's appreciate you sharing that backdrop and a little bit of history here. So now to go back just as recent as a month or so ago, the board extended an offer, right, to the realtor, to the seller, and tell us a bit about that and the details and kind of where we're going with this thing.
Yes, so we were informed by the seller that he had another proposal that was presented. And he had told us up front that if he got a proposal, I had asked if he would let us know before he accepted it to give us the opportunity to really see what we could do to move this forward. Well, long story short, he did side with us, gave us the opportunity to submit a proposal, which was really taking a huge leap of faith, quite frankly. But we knew this was our only opportunity to get this type of building or residence in the villages on the property of the villages because we didn't see anything else available. And these buildings were ideal in our mind because they were previously owned by Freedom Point. One building has 31 units and it was used for an assisted living facility. And there's another building involved in this property sale that is a one-story building and it has 13 units and it was used as a memory care by Freedom Point. Freedom Point had made the decision they had remodeled the one-story building. They were going to move on to remodel the two-story building. And somewhere during COVID, they changed their plans and decided they were going to sell those buildings. So they're currently for sale by a real estate investment trust company, a REIT, and he has owned them for just a year. The buildings were listed for 5.7 million. Excuse me, I'm sorry, they were listed for 6.5 million. We negotiated down to 5.7 million. As I said, though, the two-story building does need renovated. Freedom Point did not finish that one. Nothing major that we know of at this point, but what we're looking at is a lot of cosmetic improvements. These buildings were built in 1998, so they're in need of update. We're looking at all new flooring, all new lighting, all new painting, and also repairs of things that need to be repaired and might be identified in the building inspection. Most of the showers have been newly remodeled, and there are some that are a fiberglass enclosure that will probably look at remodeling those and replacing those as well. So it's a beautiful site. They're located right across the street from the Spanish Plains Villages Hospital and on a beautiful, gorgeous waterfront. It's a beautiful area. Of course, golf cart accessible, close to Spanish Springs Town Square, conveniently located to a lot of major retailers and restaurants in that vicinity. Opportunities for the residents there to either volunteer or find employment for them.
Yeah, absolutely. The location, Christy, as you said, is fantastic. I mean, the view. So we had an open house, right? Just
Yes,
this past week. I
yes,
think it created a lot of buzz, a lot of interest. I think folks were impressed. I think, some of the comments were, boy, it was nicer than we had even imagined. Because I think, and I don't want to say this the wrong way, most of us with a special needs adult loved one, we've been on a search for many years at different facilities, group homes. I've done a ton around the state of Florida, Ruth and I. We've done some in Michigan, and they're just, let's just put it this way, many are not desirable. This, it far exceeds that in my view. It's a place that I frankly would live in. I mean, it's just
yes.
beautiful. So location, as you said, is very beneficial as well. Let's jump in, if you don't mind, into a little bit more of the details on some timing as we look toward 2026. I can't believe it. We're already looking at Thanksgiving here at the end of the year, and soon we'll be hitting the new year. So we've got a pretty ambitious schedule ahead, target, key dates, etc. Can you talk a little bit about some of those key dates and what we're trying to accomplish and hope for here?
Sure. The progress of what we've done, and the fact that the seller had another proposal on the table really required us to jump and push this project and move it forward into fast track. And it's actually gone faster than we would even personally like, but we've had to do it in order to secure these buildings. What we're looking at right now is we're in what we're calling a due diligence period. When you've purchased a property, and then you need to do some various requirements to ensure it's what you want and what you expect, and that there's no surprises. So, what we've just done in the last week, we had a title survey done. We had an building inspection done. Once we get that report, which actually I just received this morning. And once we do that, then there's some other requirements, some written approvals, some other requirements that we need to get done during that due diligence period. We have 75 days to get that done. And right now we're targeted to close at the middle of February. Once we close in the middle of February, what we are looking at is trying to immediately start renovations on the two-story building, but we will be talking about in just a few minutes a service provider that we are going to contract with that will actually be operating and providing the care services for the residents that live there. My special place at this time will only own the buildings, and we will lease them to a service provider. We will not be providing the care services. We are contracting with a service provider that has over 60 years experience providing these kind of services to the special needs.
No,
And
that
so what we're looking at as far as renovations, as I said, are not major, but we have been cautioned by others that have been involved in commercial construction or commercial renovation projects is to consider whatever estimate we're given or cost, double it. So I will tell you that we have gotten ballpark estimates for the renovations. We got those back this summer just to give us an idea what kind of costs we were looking at altogether, not just to purchase the property, but also for the renovations to see if it was even affordable or feasible to consider. I did get an estimate from the contractor who said, I estimate that project to be about 4 months. And that's just one contractor. We're going to be getting 3 bids total and more detailed ones now that we have the inspection report, and we'll probably need to add a few things to it.
Sure.
So we're looking at potentially, though, the small building is fully remodeled. It's never been occupied. We were told that Freedom Point put $1 million of renovations in that small building. It's lovely. It's beautiful. Ready to move in just with some cleanup and some minor exterior repairs and touch-ups. And the service provider had told us they could possibly be up and running in that first story building in 2 to 3 months. Again, we're trying to be on the side of caution and estimate a longer contingency. So I would like to say 3 to 4 months. But by opening up that one building, that will bring in revenue and income for the service provider as they are preparing and gathering staff and training staff to provide in the 2-story building, which will have, like I said, 31 residents. Total between the buildings, we're talking housing for 44 individuals.
Yep. Yep. That's excellent. So let me segue a little bit, Kristy, into what a lot of folks, certainly the ones that came through the tour and then the meeting the next night. Let's talk about costs, what to expect, and then I'm not sure what's better to talk about first, because in unison with the cost, there's also a process, right? As far as, we absolutely need to know from the community who's interested in this to bring their loved one in as a resident, how soon, et cetera, and what their needs are, right? So there's going to be a lot of assessment going on, both, run by the provider. And can you talk, maybe we should talk about that first, right? Maybe the process itself for those that are interested. And again, information's going to be forthcoming, I understand. But, and then maybe from there, we can then talk a little bit more about the cost. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, yeah. So we have established these residencies to be able to receive both Medicaid funding and private pay. Medicaid funding in Florida is provided to the Agency for Persons with Disabilities, and that's APD for the acronym. And you will hear APD a lot, and that's what I'm going to refer to from this point on, which is the Agency for Persons with Disabilities. They provide the funding and services for the special needs or the IDD community. There are 7 diagnoses that qualify someone to receive those services from APD. One, and I'll just name a couple of them because some of them are unique, but someone that has an intellectual IQ of below 70, and Down syndrome individuals, also individuals with cerebral palsy or Prader-William, I think it's called. There's other diagnoses. We are also aware of individuals that may have suffered traumatic brain injury. If that is prior to the age of 18, they can possibly qualify for APD services and funding. Now, we know in our community, we do have individuals on APD services, and we have individuals who are either on a wait list or haven't applied at all. We've really been encouraging our community to at least apply and get on what they currently call a pre-enrollment list. In the past, it's always been called wait list. Right now in Florida, there are 22,000 people on that pre-enrollment list waiting for services. However, in Florida, they have recently, as of October 1st, offered a new program of funding under APD that's called ICMC. It's the Intellectual and Developmental Managed Care Program. And it's through Florida Community Care, which is an insurance provider. And if you think of managed care in comparison to what seniors have, you can consider it like an advantage plan. So, of course, it's going to have designated providers or doctors and practitioners that will be qualified in a network. However, the big emphasis is on the fact that anyone that has been on the pre-enrollment list can jump onto getting this ICMC possibly immediately if they get to the appropriate people and there's still slots available. As of October 1st, the state offered 2,000 slots. And we know for a fact that already 1,000 of those in a little over, well, a month and over a half have already been assigned. And they're in the process every day of assigning more individuals and transferring them from, I'm going to call it the wait list, a pre-enrollment list, to get services immediately. That is huge, absolutely huge for families that can't afford to private pay to live at my special place, to get those benefits right away. That's important. And so that's why we've tried to educate our community, especially through the offends group that's led by Debbie Beaucaire and Debbie Jenkins. Offends stands for Advancing Families in Need of Services. And what they do is help guide the families and help them apply to APD if they have never done that before. It can be overwhelming and daunting, the paperwork and the requirements to do that. And then again, if someone is not on APD services, then they're looking at private pay. And that just means paying out of pocket for the services, the care, and the room and board.
Yeah. So Kristy, I'm so glad that you mentioned the offends group because as you just mentioned, that process and task could be overwhelming to most, right?
Absolutely.
And we always hear all the time, we heard it in meetings just this past Thursday, folks that are frustrated because they get on the phone, they make a call to APD and they don't get a call back or they're on hold forever. The dynamic Debbie and Debbie duo can certainly jump in and assist. So we'll have information. I'm going to have a slide, by the way, on the front end and the back end of this podcast with contact information for us, for everything, right? And so I encourage all of our audience out there, don't be shy about asking for help. And it's important to get these services. So there are ways to fund these services for any potential resident, Kristy, which is great. Let's talk a little bit about the costs that we've started to share just over the past few days, right, to potential residents.
Right. So the costs and the care levels are determined, number one, by APD if the potential resident has those services. APD will assess that individual with a tool they call a QSI. And it's a common term that I think if anybody's even applied through APD, they might be familiar with. It's a questionnaire basically to determine what their situation is daily and the care that they need to live out their everyday lives. So my sister had a QSI this summer, and it can be very detailed about tasks and what they're capable of doing and what they're not capable of doing. But from that assessment, then APD determines what they call a support plan. And that support plan would identify, number one, let me just use my sister as an example. They have different levels of care and what they identify as the levels of disability. So there's basic, minimal, moderate, extensive one, and then it can go up higher than that. But we're looking at those four categories just for general purposes. So I estimate that my sister would be probably moderate, but I don't know for sure. And my sister is equivalent to a 4-year-old as far as intellectually. So every day I need to explain to her, it's time for breakfast. You need to brush your teeth, take your pills, wear this kind of clothing today that's appropriate for what you're doing today. Um, During the day, just remind her to do different tasks. Blow your nose, blow your nose, blow your nose. Just things like that. But she needs guidance throughout her entire day, obviously. And she needs an adult there with her almost 24/7. Now she can actually be by herself for a couple hours. She's not the type that would wander off, but her level of care would be similar to that. Right now, my sister does not have APD services yet. That's been a battle for 4 years. However, we're in the process of potentially at least getting on the wait list. I'm still not sure where we're at. I've been in communication just within the last week. Uh, and at this point, we may be looking at probably private pay. And in that case, the service provider that we have selected, and I'll go ahead and share that, Mike,
Sure.
it's Sunrise Group, and they're headquartered out of Miami. As I said, they have been in business for over 60 years. They're a nonprofit organization. They have over 105 residences that facilities. We don't like to use the word facilities. It sounds more institutional, is what we've been told. But homes, residences, buildings for residential clients that they serve over 1,000 clients and in 7 states. The majority of those, over 90 of them, are actually in Florida. So they're considered a large service provider compared to several of the others that we had evaluated. So since we would be private pay possibly, then the service provider or Sunrise would do the evaluation or assessment. And that will be very similar to what APD's assessment would be. And then they determine if they qualify, if it's a good fit. And then the costs are determined then as a result of this level of service and care that they feel that they would need. Now, APD actually establishes what those rates are, and it's based on hours of care for each level. So let me just explain. Basic level is 2 hours of care a day. Minimal would be 4 hours of care a day. And you say, wow, that seems like a lot to be dedicated or maybe not enough. But let me just explain that that would include the preparation of 3 meals a day. It would include transportation needs that they have. It would include them having activities during the day, what we would call a day program. Initially, those activities will be within the residences when we start these. But eventually, this service provider will be migrating to develop a separate independent facility for day program that would allow others in our community to come to the day program. And so the costs, I will just give you a range. This is just for the care services. And if you are an APD, as I said, they establish these rates, but the private pay will be exactly the same as what the state pays, so that the service provider will have a consistent amount, and it will be equal and fair for those that are on APD and those that are on private pay. So for the care services that you're looking at basic, it's going to be anywhere from, and I'm just using rounded numbers,
Right.
2,000 on up to 5,000 if we're looking at basic to moderate care. When you get to extensive, you're looking at much higher rates. An extensive might be someone that's in a wheelchair, that they need bathed, they need showered, they may need to be fed, that kind of level of care. And so that just includes services and care. But as far as the room and board, APD does not reimburse or pay for that. And that would have to be private paid by all the residents. And what that is usually paid from is the SSI or the SSDI.
Right.
And usually the minimum amount of SSI is usually about $967 is what we've been told. So our room and board has been established not by us, but by the service provider. And there are guidelines that they have to follow as well for establishing that room and board based on another government agency that licenses these facilities or buildings. And that is the Agency for Healthcare and Administration. Its acronym is ACA, and they will actually be issuing the license to the service provider for, and the license we're going for is assisted living facility. This license actually provides the capability for the service provider to provide the level of care based on person-centered needs. And it will give us the variety needed for the types of individuals that we are serving. Because as you know, in our community, there is a broad range of capabilities and functioning of our individuals. We have anywhere from my sister, who is on the lower end, to individuals that actually can drive and they have a job and they're more independent. And then we have the in between, where they're more of intellectually a 12-year-old. They still live with their parents still do things for them, but they're a little bit higher functioning. So we have that broad range. And with these two building opportunities, we are looking at the 2-story would be for the higher functioning, because through our surveys, we've identified that we have more in that category than the other category that need more of the intensive 24/7 care. Both buildings, however, will be staffed 24/7, which is ideal, especially for the parents. It's going to be safe, protected housing for them. Right now, for higher functioning individuals, the options they have are either to go into a group home or into independent apartments that are with mixed demographics and usually are HUD supported. And I will explain to you, we've heard of at least a couple situations in which IDD people have been placed there, and they've been in very vulnerable situations where people take advantage of them and no one's overseeing them. In the building that we're looking at, they're going to be in an interior building, not an outside apartment. They're going to be protected. There will be staff there 24/7. That is the beauty of the housing model that we are going to provide. And that's not available any place around here by the villages.
So, Kristy, we talked a bit about the services and those monthly costs, and really it stresses the importance of why folks that haven't started the APD process yet really need to jump in and start. And we already mentioned there's help available. So some good folks out there to help. Let's go back to talk about the room and board portion again, specifically on that pricing. I know you had mentioned that, that should be covered by SSI or SSDI, but let's talk specific numbers if you could.
Okay, so the range of room and board, which actually includes the rent, and it also includes 3 meals a day, their food. So that's $800 to $1,000 a month. And the reason why there's varying rates is because in the 2-story building especially, we've got some unique rooms. The majority of them are studio rooms with a private bath. And they're very generous sizes too, by the way. But we also have 9 units that we call semi-efficiency kitchens. They have a refrigerator, a sink, and a microwave and some cabinets, just a small area for a kitchen area. And they also have a dedicated living room and a dedicated bedroom, as well as a private bathroom. So they're larger units, obviously. And so those are the ones that are going to be on the higher end of 1,000. And then in between, there's some rooms that are just larger. They don't have the efficiency kitchen, but they're just larger. So that's why we have that range. And again, as I said, the service provider, Sunrise, actually establishes those rates.
Yeah, and those numbers, I'm not sure how folks feel about that, but just from my personal experience in looking at other group homes, especially in other establishments, I think it's incredibly reasonable. And if you couple that with the way these buildings are set up and just the whole experience, I think folks are going to be very, very pleased, and that number is very, very reasonable. So I'm personally excited about that. Um, let's jump a little bit forward. So we've talked about the background, we've talked about timing, and we're looking out into 2026 here for opening the doors and potential residents. And now we just talked a little bit about cost for the individual. Let's jump a little bit ahead and talk about our call to action and what we really need and what we're trying to accomplish to help fund this amazing project. We have got a lot of things on our plate. Your plate has been incredibly full, Kristy, along with some others on the board. But I'll just say bluntly and openly to the audience, you're going to see a whole lot of effort from our board and others in the community on fundraising. So we've got a lot of exciting things on the docket, but we really need your help. These are very ambitious targets and some big numbers. I don't want to steal Kristy's thunder, but on the good news front too, we've already seen signs that there's a whole, and we've known this forever being in the villages. There are so many big-hearted folks out there that want to help with these kind of things, and some have already stepped forward with some very generous commitments. And so what should we anticipate, and what do we want to ask of our community, Kristy? Can you share that, please?
Yes. So, as Mike said, we've kicked off a very ambitious fundraising campaign for capital fundraising to pay for the buildings, basically. We're not going to go in with them paid off. What we're looking at is we have a requirement to make a down payment of $3 million, and that will be needed by mid-February. At this point in time, we do have 1.25 million committed um, for that, towards that. And we are fundraising to get to that goal by February. But in addition to that, we do need additional funding for the startup costs. We're going to be paying for utilities. We have to pay for the renovations. There's a lot of expenses. So phase one, we're saying 3.5 million to February. And then after that, another 3.5 million for 7 million over this next year. And we have numerous initiatives for that. Of course, your number one objective for or income or for fundraising is from individuals. That's where 70% comes from for nonprofits, 501c3s such as ourselves. And so, of course, we're asking everyone to spread the word, whether it be to family members, friends, social groups, clubs here in the villages. Spread it far and wide.
Cross
And
country, around the world,
yes,
absolutely.
absolutely. It
We
doesn't
need
have to be
everyone.
just restricted to here in the villages. Of course, we have clubs that have already stepped up and said they're going to do charity events for us, such as bingo. And we have other clubs that all they do is just they raise money and give to charities. So we're looking at those opportunities as well. We've also been pursuing some grants from foundations, and we have also partnered with Parity Financial, and they are going to help with fundraising events as well. And they do exceptional jobs on their events. And so we, again, need everyone to help in this endeavor to make it possible, to make this dream come true, to have this forever home for the special needs in our community. And you know, the importance of having peace of mind. We have parents that are in their 80s and 90s who are still caring for their child in their home. They want the peace of mind knowing that they've transitioned to a forever home and that they've adjusted before they're gone and no longer here, and they can ensure that they are being cared for and everything is in place. And we had a mother speak at our parent meeting the other night that shared, I'm 83 years old. I want him to be in his next home and adjusted before something happens to me. Otherwise, he'll be dealing with the huge loss and trauma of losing the last parent, as well as adjusting to a new home. That is a lot for these individuals. That's a lot for anybody, not to mention these individuals that have a hard time with transition and change.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to have, there's going to be a lot of information. There already is a lot of information out there. You'll see it again on slides attached to this podcast, but we've got a site, we've got a website, My Special Place, the Village, My Special Place, thevillages.com.
Mhm.
And over there, I think we make it easy enough. There's a couple donate buttons there, an opportunity to donate online. We've got flyers out there and more information on our website. And you'll see things posted on our social media, on our Facebook. But there are other ways to donate, whether it's by check, donating in a creative way, stocks or whatever, something, as you go into the end of the season, end of the year and think about tax implications, there's an opportunity and a way to help this cause and don't by donating. So we really appreciate everyone out there who's going to help. We're all having conversations daily now about some of these things that Kristy just mentioned in fundraising efforts. And I was pretty excited the other day. I spent some time with a gentleman that entertains here in the villages, and he is all about and ready to jump in. He's going to do a driveway party for us, Kristy. So
That's great.
I'm excited about that, and I think my neighbors here. I don't want to speak for them, but I think they'll be up to opening their driveways up too. So it's going to be one big block party whenever we figure that event out. So numerous opportunities and so many big hearts here. So you'll,
And I'll just, can I add to
yeah,
that,
of
Mike,
course.
that I know it's a busy season of giving and asking in the community, of course, around the holidays and Christmas. But I will say that if you've met your personal budget of your fund donations to charities for the year, January 1st is just around the corner. And that gives you a whole new start and a new opportunity to donate, especially to My Special Place.
No, spot on. And the only thing I would add to that, Kristy, is these fundraising efforts are going to be ongoing on
Yes.
on the board's behalf because there really, as Kristy mentioned, there's going to be a lot of startup and ongoing costs associated with this. But I think we would all agree, Kristy, this is uh, this is a very unique project. This is a very unique opportunity. It's so exciting for the individuals themselves. So I want to kind of bring this together and wrap it up a little and ask you, Kristy, if tell the audience what does My Special Place in this whole future housing opportunity mean to you and your family? You told us a little bit about Karen, and just tell us a little bit about what this means to you personally.
Yes, so my story is that I have a sister, as I indicated, Karen, who's comparable to intellectually a 4-year-old. And she's now 68 years old as of next week. And we've been caring for her full time for 17 years. She actually used to live in a group home for 25 years, but she had some serious medical conditions almost 18 years ago. And I took over her medical advocacy. And we also felt at that time that she needed more individual care. And so we brought her into our home. And so it's been 17 years. But I will tell you, I will give you an example. Every single night lately, every single night, Karen comes to me and says, Kristy, what are we doing tomorrow? What are we doing tomorrow? What are we doing tomorrow? And I say, honey, I'm sorry, I'm going to be busy. I'm working on this project night and day. I don't take a day off. And unfortunately, it has really required me to sacrifice activities that I do with her. My husband takes up some of the slack, but of course, I don't expect him to do everything. And so she's gone through periods where she was fine not doing activities, and now all of a sudden she's become more social again. It's kind of a roller coaster, but she wants that activity. And I will tell you, at that open house that we were at last week, it was the most heartwarming scene. And I got this feedback from several people that attended to see these individuals interacting, laughing, giggling, just sitting there in the common dining room together having fun. It was what I describe as they will experience every day when they move into my special place. And that's what I want for her. I don't want her stuck in her bedroom all day just watching TV. She doesn't have that ability to think of things to do or have interests. She is, watching TV the majority of the day unless I plan something for her. She lives in my special place. She'll have that interaction with her peers every day, live out her life every day, just like the seniors do here in the independent and assisted living facilities. They're active, vibrant communities. That's what we want for our kids. That's what we want in our family members. And I want her to have that interaction every day, to be able to go out and do activities with a group and not feel this burden and this guilt on my shoulders. I need to entertain her. I need to plan something. I need to do this. I need to have a life too. And
Well, we're getting
I'm
older, right?
approaching,
And we
yeah,
don't have the energy level that we used to as,
right.
you know,
And I'm approaching 70, and my husband says we need to travel while we're still capable of it. And although we love Karen, and she'll always be a part of our life, and we'll have her home on the weekends and such, I know that her life will be enriched by living out every day with her peers
her
and
best
the
life.
joy and the fun that she'll have with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I echo that on my side too, by the way. But back to Karen for a second. Kristy, I can't tell you how much it warms my heart that so we have been, Ruth and I and Kevin have been back in Michigan for a long stretch this past time. It was 7 months, so our longest ever. And we just got back here a week or so ago in the villages. And when I first saw Karen, I it warms my heart because she remembers me.
Yeah.
She sees me right away, and I get the biggest hug from her, Mike, and that is just it just hits me right here. I have to tell you, I love your sister.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think for anyone here in the community, and there are hundreds of families here like our families that we're talking about. Um, we need a place to for our kids to call their forever home, right? As we age, and I personally think that this is a tremendous opportunity to be a model for the rest of the country. I mean, there aren't many opportunities similar to this, certainly. And we see some other startups in that have some very ambitious and good plans to build something larger and a community type home, but those are very, very rare. So I think down the road, I'm looking way ahead here. I think folks are going to look at this project as very unique and a model to be duplicated in other parts of the country. So again, Kristy, I want to thank you for taking the time and this opportunity. And more importantly, I want to thank you and some other members on the board that we really haven't had a chance to talk about. Just want to thank you and the others for just the tremendous effort that you've poured in to reinvigorate this project and get us to where we're at today. We wouldn't be here without you and some of the others. So I personally want to thank you. And final word from you.
And I just want to thank the previous board because they laid the foundation. They worked for 5 years on this, and we would not be here today had they not laid that foundation and put in all of their efforts as well. So it's been a team effort for all these years. And I think we finally see this coming to reality, but we need your help. And we need you to get out and help fundraise for us to make this happen.
Yeah, very exciting. So thank you again, Kristy. Thank you to everyone that's joined us today. Stay tuned. You're going to be hearing a whole lot more from us. And we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for helping this special and amazing cause. Until next time, thank you again. Take care.
Bye bye. Thank you, Mike.